Cross-border trade has been promoted, especially by our president, for a long time. And it is one reason that we see can uplift the people of our countries of Africa through trade. Now, unfortunately, over time, even after establishing our trade blocks, we have seen emergence of barriers to trade. Things that are not tariffs, things that can stop you from trading freely. It is assumed that to trade, you can freely trade, get goods from one country and move them to another country without any hindrances. But we have seen emergence of non-tariff barriers, things like being asked for permits, being asked for licenses to trade, being asked for very high quality standards, and sometimes being asked to trade through very particular routes. So these are things that have slowed the growth of trade in East Africa. For instance, we are aware today that interregional trade has actually gone down by over 15% on account of NTBs. We know what is happening both on the east, in the southern area, and things like that. But what is happening today is that we are seeing more and more engagement, bilateral engagements, with countries where we have trade challenges. We have seen some bilateral engagements, for instance, Uganda and Rwanda recently. We have seen engagements with Tanzania, and we have seen some engagements with Kenya. So there are certain things that are starting to be removed so that flow of trade can be that natural flow of trade that we have thought it should be. We are so excited as Uganda private sector about the announcement of opening the border. It really has been a big challenge to business people in Uganda. You know, so many manufacturers, so many traders and farmers had built a market in Rwanda. And similarly, there were also Rwandese who had built a market in Uganda. So all of this was disrupted. You can imagine trade worth $250 million a year coming to an end just like that. In 2018, our trade, Uganda-Rwanda trade was about 240. But in 2019, it was solo $5 million on the Uganda side. That is very low. So markets for goods were actually lost in Rwanda when the border was closed. So now the opening up, we believe in our view that it is and it has come at the right time when we have even reopened our economy in Uganda. So meaning that our traders, our manufacturers are going to take back their goods to Rwanda. So this is very good news. And it comes at a time when we are struggling out of COVID to rebuild our markets, to build aggregate demand. So this is going to be very helpful to our industries. Certainly there are jobs that were lost because you could not export the same amount. I would like to thank the business community because for most of them, they found mechanisms of finding other markets where they could sell their goods. Expanded more in Congo, in Sudan, and the rest. But obviously this helped somehow to protect some of the jobs, but we would have even grown better. And remember that, for instance, the Congo market is a big market for us, and we can access it quicker through Rwanda. So the blockage of this border was really a problem because even access to Congo was not as easy as it was before. So now opening is going to help our businesses rebuild their trade lines through Rwanda and to Congo. Besides supporting the flow of goods, is also good from the social side. As we know, our countries have a long history. We have families across the border. We have families that would like to meet again. But because of the closure, these families actually are not meeting. So this is the time when the border opens for families to meet again without having to worry about being harmed or breaking the law. We've had situations where people at the border, you can imagine, have lost their lives because they have broken the law or have been arrested because they have broken the law. But now that the border is opened, we are going to see this other aspect coming back, where families are going to be able to rejoin and enjoy the company of each other. With regards to the challenges of COVID, all countries have attempted to defend and protect their citizens from COVID. For countries like ours, Uganda, I think the logic was simple that, if we don't have a well-developed medical system, the best way to deal with with the COVID challenges is to protect ourselves. And the COVID came into Uganda through the borders and also through the airports. So that is why we've seen some very cautious approach undertaken by Uganda trying to test everybody that comes in. But of course, that has come with these advantages that we didn't have COVID so widespread as it was in some other countries, which was a good thing. But there are also challenges that came with it. For instance, the slowing down of trade. At one stage, because of all the various controls, trade, it was taking a track, like for instance, 2 weeks from Nairobi to Kampala. That slows down goods. And also trucks from Kampala to Mombasa, it was also taking that long. And most recently, we've seen at our border on the eastern side with Kenya, truckers, people who drive heavy vehicles, commercial vehicles, putting down their tools because they thought by us trying to test them, we are actually subjecting them to an unfair cost while they have been tested at the source.
When you add that money, actually it's a lot of money per month, and that's for individual person. That is individual person. So if you have 2 people in a truck, you will double the money.
So that created interruptions. You saw how goods were slowed down extensively. Around 2 weeks of vehicles not entering into the country and miles upon miles of trucks parked on the side of the road. And of course, we ended up having prices increasing for fuel and so on and so forth. But what has happened, and I would like to thank our government and the technical teams that have been involved in this, to really have resolved this matter by agreeing that a test that somebody has done from the other side will be sufficient for us, and then they can actually get in.
We are aware of the stalemate that had occurred at Malaba border, which has since been resolved. Mandatory testing will continue at all border points of entry.
So I think this has improved the situation, and as we speak, I think more and more the flow of goods and the trucks is much better than it was previously. We have seen prices of fuel going up, and fuel is the lifeblood of the economy. Everything moves on transport, and transport uses fuel. So prices have gone up, and these prices have been now paid by transporters. So we've been told by the fuel operators that these prices will be there for some time until when the cost that they incurred as the blockage was there is actually comes down. So meaning that we might see these prices for some time, and therefore if that is going to persist, we are likely to see some vivid increases in prices of goods and services. Of course, people who are transporting heavy goods, I think they are seeing changes in the prices they are paying for their goods. And this will end up in the consumer price and some inflation down the road. But we just pray and hope that this is going to be very temporary. We'll go back to normal within a short time. Certainly, one of the big things that COVID introduced in business is that it eroded cash and cash flows of businesses. Through when the lockdowns were there, the sales came down, and therefore businesses were using the small cash they were collecting to support their minimum operations, to control COVID, to pay their workers and things like that. So all this eroded their cash substantially, and the businesses must have cash to succeed. So importantly, we would like and wanted the government to support companies with cash flows, supporting their cash flows, either by suspending the dates at which they would be paying certain things like taxes, things like loans, and so on and so forth. So when that happens, then you have some little cash that you can use to run your businesses. But we are grateful that that happened, and there were all those moratoriums and all those deferrals. But that, because of the prolonged lockdowns, this again continued to really disseminate the cash flows in the business. So to rebuild the businesses, we need new cash to be injected in business. And we are happy that government introduced some measures that have been able to help. For instance, they have introduced the Small Business Recovery Fund that is helping small companies to access and rebuild their stock. We have also seen some banks taking on initiatives of their own to suspend repayment of interests for some of their borrowers. The measures are just a drop in the ocean, as they say. The extent of the damage is extensive, and therefore this money can reach only a few. So additional effort in this area of rebuilding is still needed. We still need to have companies access low-priced money, long-term money, so that they are able to rebuild again.